much about anything else at the moment. So let me find that. All right. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to create one of these frames, but I'm going to, rather than creating that, I'm actually going to say that this thing is going to extend it, right? Because the easiest way for me to get started is to say, look, the whole thing that I am, right? The whole little point of me being a GUI is that I am a frame, right? I'm going to just be this one dialogue, this one central thing. So it's easy to get started by just saying, I'm going to extend a JFrame, because literally that's all I am, is this one little GUI. If you had multiple dialog boxes and GUIs and things, maybe you wouldn't start by extending JFrame, but it's easy for us to do that. And therefore, we have availability on a ton of different things that you can do, because JFrame comes with a bunch of stuff, right? A bunch of constants, a bunch of methods. So this is just a really easy way to get started, is to bring in JFrame, right? To extend JFrame. You can tell this thing to go ahead and import the class using the magic buttons. And so it'll just, again, it's going to import star, right? Because it's just going to want to. And then we can start writing our, right? We can start writing our constructor, and then we'll start actually doing some work with this thing. Okay, so not too fancy, not too interesting at this point. But the thing you have to realize is, once we're in here now, again, we have access to everything that JFrame brings with it. And if you were to look at the API reference documentation, JFrame brings a lot of stuff. It's a child of this, which is a child of that, which is a child of the other thing. And you have this huge collection of methods that you have available. So if you type this dot, you'll see, can you see the size of the thumb here on the slider, how small it is, right? These are the methods that you have available off of this point, because you are a JFrame, right? So there is a whole bunch available. So one thing that's hard to get used to when you're looking at code like this is, there's a bunch of method calls and you're like, where did that come from? Well, it came from somewhere. I got it for free, right? I got this stuff for free. For instance, this first one that says set title, right? You can say my first GUI. I want to set the title of my little window, right, to say my first GUI. Okay, where did set title come from? It's available to us from JFrame. So it either came from JFrame or it came from somewhere above JFrame in the hierarchy. I don't care, I can use it. Okay. The other thing is, I can't show you everything that's possible with this stuff, because this is a very big universe. So I'm going to show you some simple, straightforward stuff, plenty to get you through the project, but you can look around and find a million different resources, and the code is going to look a little different on all of them, right? Because they're going to take a slightly different approach. They will show you new things that I am not showing you, but again, it's a big universe and we don't have a whole quarter to cover it, right? So I'm saying I want to set my title. And while I'm at it, let me do one more thing. I want to set my size. I want to be 300 pixels by 200 pixels, okay? Set the size, set the width. Interestingly, that's enough code, right? That's actually plenty of code. So let's see what happens when we run it. But to run it, we're going to need to have at least a little main to kind of throw things, to kind of create it and throw it up there, right? So I'm going to do public static void main. And I'm going to say swing intro, you know, my intro equals new. And then I've got to make one of those things. And then maybe that's sufficient. The other thing that we probably want to do here is we probably want to set this thing to be visible. The reason that that exists is because you can have dialogues that are hidden, right? You can have a button that when you click it, some little piece of the UI goes away and is hidden and then comes back. So the existence of it is separated from the visibility of it. So somewhere either in the main or in the constructor itself, we probably want to make it visible, or else it might not show up on the screen, right? But now when I run main, watch what happens. It'll be on the wrong window. I'll have to move it over to show it to you. But watch what will happen here. Okay, so on my other monitor, right up in the corner, just like this is what I got. Okay, make sense? That's all I had to do. But notice everything that I can do now with this thing. I can move it, I can resize it, I can minimize it, I can restore it, I can maximize it, I can restore it. I can click this button, but guess what happens by default when I click this X? It's not going to stop the app. What's it going to do? Going to hide it. That's right. So if you look, notice I'm still running. Okay, the GUI is still active and waiting for somebody to do something interesting with it, but it didn't stop. So I'm going to have to stop it by actually stopping the run here using my IDE. Okay. Makes sense what we've done so far? Any questions? If you wanted to react to that in some interesting way, you would want to do something. Right? In our case, it's just redoing the window, and depending on what you decide to do with it, you could react to that event or you could not. Right? But yes, not automatically will things like if you have buttons on there, it's not going to go make the buttons bigger and move them around for you. You'd have to write some code to deal with that. Okay. And typically when you're writing just the main part of your GUI, you're not going to have it react that way, right? But there are cases where you might want to, right? And so, yeah, you certainly, like, everything's possible here, right? Now, to keep that exact thing from happening, why don't we make a couple of small changes here that will help here? So for instance, why don't we say set default close operation to exit on close? So when they close that X, instead of just hiding the window, it's actually going to exit the little app, because I'm a one window app here, right? So when they close that window, I'm fine, just exit the app, right? Let's just do that. The other thing that we can do is that we can say set resizable to false. Just don't let them resize us, because it's going to look weird anyway. We're not writing code to react to it right now. So why should we let them resize the thing, right? So that little change now, I can rerun it, and then let's see what's different about the result here. So here's our thing still up in the corner, right? But notice there's no restore button, or sorry, there's no maximize button, which also means there's no restore button. You can still minimize it, yes, but you can't maximize it, and you can't then, since you can't maximize, then you don't need the restore coming back from max. So you can minimize and restore, and then also notice that I can't grab it by the corner anymore. I don't think it makes a visual affordance, but you'll see no matter where I click down here, it's not grabbable, right? There's no way for me to grab the edge and make it bigger. I can move it around, but I can't change the size of it now because I've disabled that in my code. But notice also now when I click the X, you see that process finished, and then I am in fact stopped. My process is actually stopped. Okay. All right. Any questions about that code so far? Okay, can I get a quick check-in? Everything making sense to you so far? What we're doing is working for you? Sandra, you good? Idris, Vlad, everybody good? Any questions? By the way, while we're here, ordering sometimes does make a difference here, right? For instance, setting visible is usually good at the end, because you may be doing other things that are affecting the dialogue, affecting the GUI, and putting set visible too early can be a problem. So certain things need to kind of go at the end. You could do a lot of stuff early, but I would do set visible toward the end, because really you don't want to light it up until it's ready, right? Till you've got everything in place that you're doing. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. I'll show you one other little thing that's just kind of fun. because this is always going to come up in the upper left-hand corner of the main monitor, right? This always comes up in the upper left-hand corner. What if I want to center it, right? What if I want to do something else like that? In fact, do we have time? Is that where I'm going? I guess I'll go there today. So if you want to do that, what you want to do is there is a way to interface with the operating system just a little bit through a thing called a toolkit. And the toolkit will give me very basic ways to interface with the environment, like ask how big the monitor is, and use a beep, the operating system beep operation, right? Just some very crude, not fancy, but a way to at least get to some basic services that I may find useful in terms of positioning and dealing with, dealing with feedback. So the place that we're going to declare, we're going to create this thing up here, and we're going to say we have a private toolkit, and I'm just going to call it toolkit. It's going to say, I don't know where that is. You can, of course, import it, and that's going to bring in awt.everything, right? And then the way that you actually get that thing, that you get a hold of it to use it, is that you ask the frame, which I am, right? I'm a frame. I ask myself to get my toolkit and get it and pass it. So the way that I can do that here is I can say toolkit equals get toolkit. Okay. That's implied, again, this dot get toolkit. It's something that the frame knows. So the frame already has a toolkit available to it. We just have to ask it for it, right? We just want a reference to it so that we can talk to it more directly. Okay. So give me a reference to your toolkit, right? And then we can use it to do things. Maybe we don't need the global, maybe it would be fine, right? If we don't need it outside the constructor, maybe we don't need the global, right? But that's enough to get us started. And then you can do fun stuff. Let me move this down a little bit, bloop, bloop, right? Then you can do some fun stuff like this, where you can say, there is another object that's kind of clever from AWT called the dimension. And I say, hey, I want to say toolkit dot get screen size. How big is the screen in which I'm living, right? How big is my screen? That's stored in a set of dimensions, which is in a dimension object. And then I can do something clever like this. I want to set my little object, my little GUI's location, and then I'm just going to paste this in because it's just as easy to do that than try to type it. You can use the size of that thing to figure out where this goes, right? So I'm going to put my X coordinate there, my Y coordinate here, right? So I can get the width of the screen. I can take that size and find its width divided by 2 so that I can center my little dialogue, my little GUI within that space. Not necessary, but it's kind of fun. That way you can move it around a little bit. Of course, you can call set location and put in standard values, right? Just hard-coded values if you wanted. But the toolkit's kind of nice if you wanted to position things based on what's going on the screen. Okay. So now, again, when I run this thing, let's see what happens. I have to bring it over from my other monitor, but it was completely centered on that main monitor, right? So it came up literally right in the center. Okay, makes sense so far?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Cool, thanks for responding. All right. All right, so next step, that's probably enough stuff to get us going in terms of having our little window, right? Our little window's in pretty good shape. We're doing all right here. Let me just get rid of some of this for space considerations so we have room down here to work. Okay, the next thing to notice, let me bring it back up so that we can talk about it a little bit more. The next thing